and this is lesson 1.6, density. So to start off with, we have this table, and we have 4 different substances: lithium, water, aluminum, and lead. Here is a cube that represents the size of that substance. Notice that the mass of all of them are the same. They're all 10 grams. The volume is different, and it gets smaller as we go down. So even though the mass stays the same, the volume is different, and therefore the density is going to be different. When you have the same mass but different densities, you also are going to have different volumes. So density is essentially the amount of stuff that can be fit within a certain amount of space. The space that 10 grams of each of these substances takes up a different amount of space. So the definition of density is that it is the ratio of mass of an object to its volume. The equation is density equals mass divided by volume. Or D equals mass M over V. So you might have a little bit of trouble remembering, does mass go on top or does the volume go on top? If you think about density as the love equation and draw a line through it, the M is on the top part of the heart. Volume is on the bottom. You should know the density equation for your test. So I want you to think about, how does temperature affect density? Well, most of the time, as temperature increases, the volume also increases. So temperature increases, volume increases, which is going to cause density to decrease. An example of this is from hot air balloons. The air inside the balloon, you heat it up with a fire. The balloon inflates, but same amount of air, it's just being heated up, so the balloon is going to expand. The balloon becomes less dense than the cold air around it, so the hot air balloon rises. So an exception is for ice. Ice is typically colder than the beverage that you put it in, and ice is going to float. So ice is less dense than water. so it floats. This is one of the only solids that is less dense than the liquid it is made out of. So sometimes we'll need to measure the volume, and we can measure the volume of like a cube or a rectangle by length times width times height. So here we have 5 centimeters times 3 centimeters times 4 centimeters. When you multiply those together, you should get 60. But remember, we need to have the correct number of sig figs. Well, we have 2 sig figs in each number of our calculation, but here we only have 1. So we need to put a decimal behind the 0 in order to make this 0 significant. So we have 60 cubic, because centimeters times centimeters times centimeter is cubic centimeters for our volume. The mass of the cube is 75.0 grams, and we want to determine the density. So remember, density equals mass divided by volume. So the mass is 75.0 grams. The volume is 60 cubic centimeters. So we have 3 sig figs on the top, 2 on the bottom, so our final answer needs 2. When you calculate this, you should get 1.25 grams per cubic centimeter. Grams and cubic centimeters doesn't cancel. So 1, 2 equal to 5, so we're going to round this to 1.3 grams per cubic centimeter. So sometimes we might have an irregular shaped object, and so we are going to measure the volume by displacement. In order to do that, you are going to get a graduated cylinder, measure some water, and then you're going to drop the object in. Measure the volume afterwards, and then the difference between those is the volume of the object. So the volume of the object is the final volume minus the initial volume. So our 4 volume is 40, goes up to 40, 45, 50, so we know to the ones place. So we need to estimate to the tens place. So since it's right on there, we're going to say 40.0 milliliters. After you put it in, looks like it is right at 65.0 milliliters. So we're going to take 65.0 milliliters minus 40.0 milliliters. to give us a volume of 25.0 milliliters. Remember, for significant figures with addition and subtraction, you need the same number of decimal places. So we're good there. So our volume of the object is 25.0 milliliters. The mass is 15 grams. So now we can take our density equation, plug straight into there. So density equals the mass, which is 15.0 grams, divided by 25.0 milliliters, which when you put it in the calculator, you just get 0.6. But we need 3 sig figs. So here's 1, 2, 3. To get our 3 sig figs, you just add in those zeros. The units are grams per milliliter. So sometimes we're going to want to find the mass of an object or the volume of the object for a given density. So this problem says, what is the mass of 250 milliliters of benzene, which is going to be our volume, if the density is 0.8765? So our density equation, D equals mass divided by volume. In order to get mass by itself, we need to multiply by we need to multiply by volume on both sides. And when you do that, volume is going to cancel out. So mass equals density times volume. So 0.8765 grams per milliliter times our volume of 250.0 milliliters. And when you calculate that, I believe you get a mass of 219.125. But we need 4 sig figs in our answer. So 1, 2, 3, 4 less than 5. 4 less than 5. So it is going to be 219.1 milliliters is going to cancel, so we're going to be left with grams. In our last example, it says what volume of silver metal will weigh 2.5 kilograms if the density of silver is 10.5 grams per milliliter, or grams per cubic centimeter. So now we have our density equation. Density equals mass divided by volume. We want to find volume. So we can take our density equation and divide or multiply by the reciprocal to get mass off of that side. Mass is going to cancel. So we have D divided by M equals 1 over V. Well, we don't want V down here, we want it up top. So we need to flip both of these. So we're going to get volume equals mass divided by density. The mass is 2.5 kilograms, but our density is 10.5 grams per cubic centimeter. So we need to convert the 2.5 kilograms to grams. We would move the decimal 3 places to the right, which would be 2,500 grams for our mass. So 2,500 grams divided by 10.5 grams per cubic centimeter. Grams are going to cancel. 2,500 divided by 10.5 should give us 238.095. We have 3 sig figs in each of those, so we need 3 in our final answer. So we're going to round this to 238. And our units for volume is just going to be cubic centimeters. So you should be able to rearrange your equations like this, but if you are having trouble with that, you may recognize the density triangle from physical science. Our equation is density equals mass divided by volume. So cover up density to do mass divided by volume. If you want to find volume, you're going to cover that up and mass divided by density. If you want to find mass, cover that up mass, and it is density times volume. So again, you're going to need to know the density equation and how to work it for both mass and volume as well. You have practice in your packet, practice X over density. Make sure you take a look at that and come and see me if you have any questions. Thanks for stopping by.